Look at the camera. Where to look? Shavua Tov, Yaakov Halcha Darko. It's time to proceed with all of the wonderful celebrations of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchas Torah, and take it into the real world. And I hope that tonight's story, we can take a lesson that we can apply in our real life. A number of years ago, there was a couple in Jerusalem that were married for over 10 years without having children. They had tried everything medically, everything holy, everything blessing, gone to the burial sites of our patriarchs and matriarchs and everything else in between, to no avail. And they were very broken and very downhearted when someone suggested that they had not yet tried the charm, the segula in Hebrew, of trying to recite the Haftorah that's read on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. That's the story of the famous Chana, who was childless after at least 20 years, and she went and prayed to God for a child and promised to dedicate that child to God. And her prayers were answered. We read that every year, Rosh Hashanah. Only one person can be called to read it. And it was suggested that this husband here should try to have the privilege of reading the Haftorah in his synagogue that year. So he came to the synagogue determined to actually purchase this aliyah because they would auction it off. And although he wasn't wealthy, he was determined to spend what it took, and he outbid his other three competitors, and he was told, shortly you will be called up for that aliyah. Torah reading began, and when they reached the fifth aliyah, he was approached by a stranger, someone in the synagogue, who said, my brother and I have yahrzeit today, meaning our dad passed away on this day, and it's a custom to get an aliyah to be called to the Torah on the day of the passing of a parent. But we forgot that two brothers don't get called up back to back. It's not considered appropriate. So my brother bought number 6, I bought number 7. We paid for it, they're giving it to us, but we can't take it. We can't get called up back to back. Perhaps you'd be willing to switch with me. My brother will be 6, you will be 7, the young man without children, and I'll be number 8. I'll read the Haftorah. And the guy was stunned. Here, his one and only last remaining hope was that this aliyah, this prayer, reading the prayer of Chana, perhaps he and his wife would be answered as well. And now someone is coming innocently and asking, could you just swap aliyahs? Who cares if you're number 1 or 2 or 7 or 8? By the way, this Haftorah comes once a year, not every week. After a moment of reflection, the young man, the father, said, no problem, I'll switch with you. And that's what happened. They switched aliyahs. He, who had paid so much money to be given that special aliyah, got number 7, and this stranger, who had yahrzeit, was given the Haftorah. When he finished reading the Haftorah, and he came down the steps from the bima in the synagogue, he was surrounded by a bunch of shocked, perhaps angry, perhaps, I don't know a better word, people began to say to him, what kind of an insensitive, uncaring person are you? Don't you know that this young man wanted this aliyah because he and his wife are without children for so many years, and they were hoping to be blessed in the merit of reading that Haftorah, and you just went over and said, can I switch with you? Now he has a year to wait for the next opportunity? How uncaring could you possibly be? And this poor guy had no clue. He didn't know the guy. He was a stranger to the synagogue. And he burst into tears, and he went over to ask forgiveness from that young man. And the young man calmed him down and said, don't worry about it. You have nothing to be sorry about. But that guy, I should give names, was very upset. He really felt that he had caused a lot of pain and unnecessary pain to this other guy. A year goes by, and the two of them meet in the doorway of the synagogue. The young man without children and the guy whose father passed away on Rosh Hashanah. And the guy, the yahrzeit guy, comes running over and he says, listen, I can't tell you how many nights I couldn't sleep properly because I felt guilty of what I had caused to you and your wife to take away that opportunity. So earlier today, I met with the synagogue and I told them I will pay anything that it takes in order that you should have that haftorah, that opportunity to read the story of Chana, and perhaps you'll get those blessings. That's the only way I can think of making it up to you. The young man smiled and he said, "En." In my world, that means not necessary. My wife and I were blessed with twins 2 months ago. So around 10 months after Rosh Hashanah, without reading the story of Chana, he and his wife were blessed with twins. As the man stood there in shock, he said, the young man, now a proud father of 2, said, when you asked me to give away this opportunity, my first inclination was to say, H-E-L-L, no. No way am I going to give this away. It's my last chance. Then I thought to myself, I've tried everything under the sun. I've gone to doctors, undergone all kinds of treatments. I've gone to rabbis. I've gone to pray. I've fasted. I've done everything I could do. There's one thing I hadn't done. I'd never tried. And that was to bend. That was to give away something that I treasured for someone else who wanted it. That I had not tried, to put myself on a side. And I decided maybe that's what I need to do, even more than the prayer of Chana. Put myself on the side for someone else who wants something that I'm able to give him. And it had a very good ending. This year, may we all have the blessings that we want, the blessings that we need, but may we also be ready to put ourselves a little bit on the side to make someone else's life better. Shavua Tov.